In this video, what we're going to be working on is specifically how does the editing software work. We're going to specifically be working with Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, I don't necessarily think that it matters what editing tool you use as long as you know it and you're comfortable with it. So what we're going to do right now is get into Adobe Premiere and kind of like look at all the different features on it. But first thing we have to do is actually make a project. So we're going to make a project and then we're going to go from there. So to make a project, you open it up, you see this, you see a bunch of stuff on this create a project window. You don't actually need most of this, but what I do want to make sure you focus on is where are you saving it and what is it named? Naming a project I think is really important because you want to make sure you're naming it something that makes sense. Realistically, you're going to be working on lots of projects over your career. So making sure that each project is a unique name, not just Untitled 1, New Project, Test Project, Fast Edit, Today's Day, whatever, right? What I try to do with most of my projects is take the date and what it's about. Where you save it is really important. Adobe is going to default the Adobe Premiere project folder. Now know if you never change this location, everything's going to go into this area. So if you create a project, don't set a location, it's most likely in here, and that's also going to be the default location for what you're exporting. You also see a number of different tabs on this new project window. Scratch disk, ingest settings. You just want to stick with the default on these. You don't really have to worry about them. Once you open up Adobe Premiere, you're going to see a bunch of windows popped up. On the left, top left, you see your source window, top right is your program window, project in the bottom left, and timeline kind of making up most of the bottom right-ish area. Up top, you see different types of views, editing, effects, audio. I really just kind of live in the editing space. You can also grab each little window and just drag them to different areas. So right now, what I want you to be doing is get comfortable with the software. Take a look at the software, move stuff around, try to break it because you have to know how to fix it to be comfortable with it, right? So in your mind, everything you're doing in the editing software should just be muscle memory. You should move things around with ease. You should know the tools really, really well because what you want to be focusing on, what you want to be using your actual thought and creative energy toward is telling a story. You shouldn't be worried about, oh, what happens if I have a technical issue? Because you should really know how to solve some of these really basic issues. Let's say if I moved a bunch of clips around and now look, it's just like kind of a mess. Like I don't really know what my project's doing. Well, you can click up top at window. So move your mouse up to window, go to Workspaces and click on reset to saved layout. What that's going to do is zip everything back to what its default is in whatever view you have, right? So right now I'm in editing view, and so that's kind of where it's stuck. So next thing I'm going to do is like look at how we've organized our project, right? We have audio, exports, footage, graphics, project. Right now, really nothing in the exports area. We saved our project into the project window. But what I'm going to do now is actually move my graphics, footage, and audio into the program. There are multiple ways to do everything. I can right click in here, I can say import. I can go up to file and go down to import. What I like to do is I like to drag and drop my files when I'm importing them. So depending on how much you're importing, you will see an import files dialog pop up, and that might move kind of slow. It might be pretty fast if you only have a couple files, but when it's done, depending on the type of files you pulled in, you might get a little pop-up error, but I wouldn't really worry about that in most cases. Usually they are little thumbnail files or configuration files. Considering I dropped all of my audio files in, there might be some I just call them garbage files in there that really don't matter to the editor, but they were built into the camera that you used or the audio recorder you used or something like that. So I just click OK on that. And then you can see my folder structure is very similar to how we built it out. I've got my audio area. My footage area comes in kind of weird, and this just kind of all depends on what kind of camera you're shooting with because Adobe recognizes cameras differently. So I'm going to want to reorganize that a little bit and rename that file camera B. Go through and I'm going to rename music because that didn't come in right. And then I'm going to move my 2 clean audio areas into a clean audio folder and pop that into audio. Next thing I'm going to make is a sequence folder, and I'll show you that. Well, and that's it. It's all done, right? It's easy. Just kidding. We're not all done, but everything's imported and in our editor. The next phase is to create a timeline and work around that timeline, because really there's not much we can do without pulling the footage into a timeline. And so that's going to be on the next video.